We start in Afghanistan, where the BBC has found evidence that people are going to desperate lengths to survive the second winter since the Taliban took control, including selling their daughters. The Afghan economy has collapsed, and the UN's described the situation as a catastrophe, with millions on the brink of starvation. Rates of malnutrition among children have gone up by nearly 50%. And the BBC has learned that some people are giving their hungry children potentially harmful tablets to sedate them. Well, let's go over to our South Asia correspondent, Yogita Limai, who's in Kabul. Yogita, it's difficult to think of more desperate measures for parents to take.
Karan, we were in this area last year, and even at that time the situation was grim. We had met a few families that had told us that they were selling their daughters in marriage because they needed money to survive. But this time when we went back, it was overwhelming and so widespread. Literally everywhere we went, we heard the same stories. People having to sell their young daughters. Some people even telling us about selling organs to survive. And something that we have, in all of our time covering the humanitarian story in Afghanistan, something that we have never seen on the ground, which is parents telling us that they're giving their children tranquilizers, antidepressants, anti-anxiety medicines so that their hungry children stop crying and go to sleep. This is our report, produced with Imogen Anderson and Malik Mudassir.
Just outside Herat live tens of thousands, displaced by years of war and natural disasters. A second winter since the economy collapsed. In each home, a story of acute hunger. They came to us, wanting to be heard. We were shocked by what they said. Our children cry because they're going to bed hungry, so we give them tablets to put them to sleep. They'd be better off dead, Abdul Wahab said.
Does anyone else also do the same thing?
A lot of us, all of us, they said. Ghulam Hazrat was carrying the tablets with him. They were tranquilizers. Others later also showed us antidepressants they give their children. In the market, you can get 5 tablets for the price of 1 piece of bread. Ghulam said he gives it to his 1-year-old. These men, their dignity, broken by hunger.
I sold my 5-year-old daughter for $1,200 and sent my teenage son to Iran illegally to work. My younger sons collect rubbish every day.
We have nothing. Where should we take our children and go? They asked. 4-year-old Nazia lives next door. She's been sold to be married to a boy from the southern province of Kandahar. Her father, Hazratullah, announced at the local mosque that he wanted to sell her because he couldn't afford to feed his family. At 14, Nazia will be sent away.
I used most of the money to buy food and some for medicine for my son. Look at him. He's malnourished and needs treatment. I'd never think of selling my daughter if there was any other option.
We didn't have to look hard to find these stories. They were behind every door we walked into.
From what we've seen and heard, we know that there is a disaster unfolding on the ground here. Hunger is a slow and silent killer, and often its effects aren't immediately visible. But the truth is, we will never know the scale of what is happening here because no one is counting. People here feel abandoned by everyone, by the government that is currently running this country, and by the whole world.
This is an emergency. More than half the country needs life-saving support. Millions are a step away from famine.
The tablets you saw in that piece, the drug in those tablets is the same as is used in Xanax, which is how much of the world knows it. We asked doctors what that could do to young children, and they said if it's given to very young children without adequate nutrition, it can cause liver damage and a host of chronic disorders.
Yogita, it is difficult to find words after what was in your report. What indications are there, if any, that help is on the way?
Well, current humanitarian agencies are able to operate on the ground, but most of them at the moment for their work in Afghanistan are underfunded. And essentially, they've been trying to provide a humanitarian link in an economy which has collapsed. Why did the economy collapse? Well, when the Taliban seized control last year, foreign funds which were given to the previous government, which pretty much ran this country, they were abruptly stopped. And so people who were living difficult lives even before that have now been pushed into situations where they literally cannot find any work. We also asked the Taliban government what they're doing about it. They tried to downplay the scale of the crisis. One of the spokesmen even said that some of the people are not in as terrible conditions as they're saying they are. But they blame international sanctions on Afghanistan, the freezing of Afghanistan's assets by the international community.
Yogita, thank you so much. Yogita Limai joining us live from the Afghan capital, Kabul.